there. We're good?
All right. Can I have everybody's attention, please? Sure. So we're wonderfully excited to see as many of you here for this presentation. If you're not aware, we started this whole process on Monday. We had a couple roundtables with youth and young professionals, and then we went into a leadership roundtable to start us off. And then yesterday we continued with a couple more with roundtables from the merchants and the tourism industry. And so we all met about an hour at a time. We had some great conversation. And then Monday we also had an open public meeting, which we had some public opinions and thoughts and good conversation also. So it's been very exciting to see this all evolve to tonight. We are very excited. The Ellensburg Downtown Association and the Kittitas County Chamber of Commerce have partnered with the help of the lodging tax from the city of Ellensburg to bring Arnett Muldrow and the brothers of Ben and Tripp. And I'll leave Carolyn to introduce them and begin the show tonight.
So I've actually known about Ben and Tripp for over 10 years. I got familiar with them in Iowa when I first saw them present, and then I saw Ben present in Gig Harbor, and I immediately texted Amy and said, this is what we need. So I'm very excited. I'm also a little bit nervous, but I'm very excited, and I trust them. So Ben and Tripp have done over 300-something communities over the past 10 years. I'll let them give you a little more background about themselves, but sit back and they're going to knock your socks off, I have no doubt. So Ben and Tripp Muldrow.
Well, first I want to say what a thrill it is to be here and see so many familiar faces. Thank you for all of you who participated in the roundtable discussions or the public meeting. And for those of you who didn't, I hope we will impress you this evening. And for those of you who did, I hope we reflect what you said and what we present. Before we jump in, there are a couple comments I want to make because we work in so many different places. I just want to pay a compliment to Amy and Carolyn because it is extraordinarily rare for us to work in a community where the downtown organization and the Chamber of Commerce have such esprit de corps among the groups. We often work in communities where those two organizations are fighting with one another and arguing. And so the fact that these two organizations came together to do this project for us was really impressive. And the people you pulled together was really great. The other thing that really struck us upon arrival here, having worked in Wenatchee and Gig Harbor, been to Washington State many times, you're doing some really good things and you're doing some things right. The other strong partner you have is with the university, and we also often see a lot of friction there as well. And the fact that you drive into town and you see this billboard that welcomes you to Ellensburg and then tells you to go to downtown, that is a university billboard. That's impressive. Part of what we're seeing too with the initiative with My Ellensburg, and we'll talk a lot more about that, when you're working with other organizations and pointing people to that website and driving traffic to that website, Amy can tell you what a tremendous impact that is having on customer visits to the website here in Ellensburg. So that's a really important thing that we often don't see in communities. So we're thrilled to see that coming here. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Ben to talk about some of the challenges that you face as well, because there's some complicating issues here because you have a lot going on in this community.
Absolutely. And first of all, I want to thank you all too. We're going to try to keep this nice and tight, 3.5 hours or so. And just remember, all the good ideas that you see came from this guy. If there's anything you didn't like, Tripp came up with it. Okay? We work it that way, and it seems to work out very, very well. You know, one of the first things that we always have to do is we have to look at the things that exist already in the community. And I will say this, our job would be unbelievably easy if when we came in, we could simply wipe everything off the slate and start completely clean. That'd be easy for anybody because you wouldn't have to think about what already existed, what has been invested in, how it might or might not have earned some awareness in the community. But the fact is, there are a lot of different things that already exist in the community. There are a lot of different organizations that are the stewards of those identities. So we wanted to see if we could create a communication foundation that could start with tourism efforts and downtown efforts to start to create these threads through all of our communication and give the opportunity for other events. Yeah, that's good. That's good. That'll give you some of you a chance to get some shut-eye if you need it. Puts the challenge on us to be interesting, right? It gives us the opportunity, though, for brand extension. And the thing is, what we are not trying to do is we are not trying to force everything to look exactly alike. That's not how real community works. It's not how it looks. It's not how it feels. So we looked at all this stuff, and we've got some kind of interesting things, everything from the city website, the city logo. This logo has been unbelievably well implemented. You can see it everywhere from websites to the side of trucks to signage in the community, okay? It is everywhere, and it has been used both as the graphic icon and as the word all by itself. Now, I will say, as we go through this process, if everything you had was perfect, we wouldn't need to be here. There are some elements of this design that we heard folks in the community kind of comment on. It's like, well, other than the fact that there are 3 bulbs on that lamp post, this doesn't necessarily feel like it's uniquely us. That you hear that a lot from folks. But also the colors can tend to date things sometimes too. And we heard a couple comments along the way that maybe that color scheme was a little bit dated to early 90s or so, and that's fine. We've got some other things like a relatively new Chamber of Commerce logo for the county that I think is very, very well done. We see logos for organizations and events in the community that have really created some of their own identities. Of course, the rodeo, things like that, Spirit of the West, and even the Dachshunds on Parade. So you've got these great mixture of things, but what we want to do is we want to start to create some opportunities for those to be connected. Now, how we're going to do that is through a 4-prong approach. We want to create a foundation of a more unified set of typefaces. We're going to try to define some colors that will help to connect the dots. We want to go through and we want to use some similar approaches to the way that we use graphics, and then also through the continuity of message. Now, the first place that I wanted to start was with color. And when we look through, one of the things that I feel like has been attempted here was to have a system that used color to connect the dots. But what you did was you put all of that pressure on the color of CWU, that crimson color. And I'll be honest, I went to the University of South Carolina. Our color is probably the same. We call it garnet because we want to feel special about it, But, the fact is, that color's it's a great color, but there aren't a whole lot of things you can put with that color. All my clothes that I have when I go to a football game are garnet, black, or white. Those are my options. You might be able to get a little bit of yellow or gold in there. The thing is that color truly is connected with the identity of the university. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to create a palette that was very much connected to this place. Something that CWU color could exist in as a complement to, but we wanted to pick colors that were truly derived from your community. So we went through an exercise where we took several of the photos that we had taken and we sampled colors out of those photos. And what this is, it's actually a kind of cool automated process that looks at the photos and creates certain saturation points. Now, this is a photo from campus. You can kind of see we've got 2 blues, 2 greens, and kind of a taupey brick color. Now, we take a photo from the heart of downtown, the Davidson block, got some, and look, I know we're talking a lot about colors, but a little disclaimer here. Colors don't ever appear on a projector like they do in real life. So don't hold it. Just look at some of the continuity differences and similarities. So 2 blues, a green, and then we've got kind of two shades in that kind of brick and taupe color. We jump over to a photo from Sunset Magazine of the Ellensburg Rodeo. Two blues, same kind of family of the kind of yellow and red from downtown, but now instead of green, brown. Very interesting that as you start to move around, and we were putting all these different photos in from different places, relatively similar colors every single time we did the sample. Now, what that means to us is it doesn't mean that we can sit there and say, oh, well, these are exactly the colors you need to pick, but I think your place helps to dictate where that palette should lie. So what we did was we isolated it into about a 6 or 7 color range that has a couple blues in it, has a couple greens in it, has one kind of touch of brown into it, and then some of those kind of gold and orange colors. That way, it would give us the opportunity to be able to kind of connect and say, you know what? All of those colors were strategically selected based off those color samples. And what it ends up doing is it ends up really making the imagery pop in the composition of our ads. And you'll see that as we go through it. It is kind of an interesting exercise. But again, what I feel like we've done is we've gone from here into a nice tight range that I think that we want to kind of dance around until we get it perfectly right. You want to add anything with that? Now, the next thing, and this is where it gets really
I didn't come
tough.
up with any of that, so I mean.
Yeah, Tripp did all that. The next part is typeface. And when you look, if you remember that slide that we put up there, typefaces were all over the place. And there were some groups or organizations that might have used similar typefaces, but based off what I saw, I'm guessing that if that ever happened, it actually happened by accident. So what we tried to do is we tried to look at a lot of the different things that existed and create 2 primary typefaces that would be our go-to typefaces. And what we ended up picking was, we ended up picking one primary that is actually a script typeface. And I don't normally do that. And Tripp was making fun of me the other day because I think that maybe I've been doing it a little more lately than I have. I said for years that I don't ever do it, and that changes. But
You had a baby girl, and I think.
yeah. That's probably it. You know, and hopefully this isn't going to hurt anybody's feelings. Based off the meetings that we had, I felt like your community is actually more beautiful than the people that live here realize it is. And that's not bad. That's typical. I mean, you live it every day. You're surrounded by it. Like, when I call home, I'm like, you have got to see this place. It is absolutely gorgeous.
And I think people here recognize that. I mean, we went up on the hill in the park, and there were people eating lunch overlooking.
Yeah.
You know, and I thought, this has got to be a common occurrence, because how can you not come up here and overlook this view?
Yeah. So we wanted to select a typeface that actually elevated that kind of sense of look and feel. We wanted to make you look prettier because you deserve it. Now, in addition to that, though, with the secondary typeface that we selected, I selected one that was, it was very, very versatile. And I know this is geek talk. I mean, I'm one of those design nerds. And it's like, seriously, just put it up there. We want to see it. But the thing that I liked about it was the typeface has 5 different variations built into it. And what that does is it allows us tremendous amount of diversity with still keeping the same look and feel. Because we have so many different events in this community, so many different organizations, you needed a platform that gave you a little more diversity. So what we landed on was a primary script, and one of the hardest things about scripts is a lot of times they might look good in your community's name, but then they don't look good in anything else. This particular one, we tested it out not only on Ellensburg, but also on several of the other events, and it does work for us. And then the secondary typeface has some very interesting stylized elements to it that put it in a time period that mirrors some of the architecture that you see right in the heart of your downtown.
What are they, please?
The top is called Brand Pro, and the bottom is called Trend Slab, and that's Trend Slab 1.
That's real geek talk there.
Yeah.
So,
All right. So now what we're starting to see is we're starting to see some of the elements and the colors. But then where we start to tie the strings together is with the message. Now, we do that with something we call a brand statement. And I wrote this brand statement, and I'm going to read it to you.
I wrote the brand statement, and one of the issues that we are dealing with in Ellensburg is that this community has a tremendous amount of experience running campaigns. You had Ellen for many years, and she was very effective at communicating who you are. And then you now have the My Ellensburg campaign that you're running that sends a lot of people to a new URL that's generating a lot of traffic. And so oftentimes we grapple, and here we were grappling particularly with, are we creating a campaign, or are we creating an identity or a tagline that may be permanent? And I think that that's something that we're not going to determine. We're going to put it out here and let you take it and see what happens with it over time. But one of the things that we thought really the My Ellensburg piece needed is there's a great group that came together to come up with it, but it really needs a narrative. We need to have a narrative to accompany it. So if you'll bear with me, I will read through and imagine this too being read by different people from the community without a twang from the South. Have you seen My Ellensburg? It's a place just past where the highway speeds by. It's a downtown rich with historic architecture. It's a place where art can be seen not only in museums and galleries, but reflected in our streets. It's a place where craftsmanship is shown in the things we make. It's the blue skies over mountain vistas that surround our lush and cultivated valley. It's the reflection of light through a rare and precious stone. Have you heard My Ellensburg? It's the sound of children learning. It's the lecture of a professor teaching future leaders. It's the roar for the wildcats. It's jazz drifting through the valley. It's the sound of creativity at work. Have you tasted My Ellensburg? It's the flavors of fine food from the surrounding land, the comfort of a burger beneath lit neon, the sweet cold taste of ice cream, or the refreshment of a craft beer or a sip of fine wine. Experience My Ellensburg. Let me share My Ellensburg with you. See the view I have. Hear the sounds I hear. Taste the flavors I taste. And feel the comfort, pride. I missed one. I missed one. I missed felt. Dang, I've never messed up before. Because we've got to read Have You Felt by Ellensburg. We're tasting, now we're going to feel. Because feel always comes after taste. Stop, Ben. I apologize. So let's go back. Have you tasted My Ellensburg? It's the flavors of fine food, so forth. Have you felt My Ellensburg? It's the wind in your hair that creates power for our region. It's the feeling of pride when you see a cowboy carry the American flag in our rodeo. It's the feeling of security to know you're in a place that is safe, where we take pride in our work, do what has to be done, and our word is our bond. Experience My Ellensburg. Let me share My Ellensburg with you. See the view that I have, hear the sounds that I hear, taste these flavors I taste, feel the comfort, pride, and spirit I feel. My Ellensburg is just over the pass and too interesting to pass up. Not far from home with a hometown feel. My Ellensburg can be yours to experience and yours to explore. I mean, it's good and all. It would have been better if you hadn't left the slide out.
You know, one of the things that's so interesting about this, and people ask us a lot of times, you know, what do we use that for? Like, that's beautiful, but what does it do? And what I really like about this is the way that Tripp wrote it. You can almost take it slide by slide, and all of a sudden that narrative can be what goes over some of the video footage that you guys have been collecting. It turns it into these little vignettes, these little elements into, you know, the glimpses into the community. And the other thing that it does, and I have to be blunt about this, and I know every time I say I'm blunt, Tripp freaks out. It's like, oh God, what's going to come out now? Your community, because it has so many different angles, so many different facets, you all constantly have folks who are passionate about their part of this community. And the thing that we want to be very, very clear about is you do not need a theme. We saw it happen on Facebook today. There was a question about, or there was a notice about this meeting. And all of a sudden, people started going on. And they're like, oh, we need a Wild West theme. Well, it's not what we're doing here. And it's not what we're about. We're about how do we blend all of the feeling, texture, culture of a cowboy lifestyle with higher education, with fine artists, with great food, with things that people create with their own hands and do it to share with others. And that dynamic nature of this place is what makes you special. It's not that you're a Western town, and it's not that you're a college town, and it's not that you have easy access to the highway, or you're close to great natural resources, or you're leading the way in sustainable, renewable energy generation. It's that you're all of those things. And sometimes those things might not seem like they go together, but the contradiction is what makes you great. And that's what we really wanted to start to put together with this statement, because that is the core essence of why you all are such a special place. And hopefully when you see those words that Tripp put together, you'll kind of start to feel how, I mean, we fell in love with it. That's what we try to do. We try to convince ourselves, what do we need to see? What do we need to hear to move our families here? And we saw it and we heard it. You guys are great. And you also taking that My Ellensburg campaign and giving it the opportunity to turn into an actual invitation. The people that make this community up, inviting others to be their guest. So that's what we're pretty excited about that. Now, all that being said, the community is a complex one when it comes to character. And we wanted to create something that was attractive. We wanted to create a word type that was ornamental in nature, paid a little bit of tribute both to some of the ornamentation that you might see with a Western style, but also the same ornamentation that exists in Victorian architecture. It's amazing. It's like, believe it or not, you can feel like you have a Western culture without using a typeface called Stagecoach. And that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to find that cultured side. So I'm going to throw this up, and then we'll keep going. And just, you know, little disclaimer, the first time you see anything that represents the place you call home, and you've never seen it before, it feels awkward. That's why we've done a whole lot more work after this slide. So we'll just let it all sink in before you throw chairs, all right? Deal? Okay, so here we go. So we brought all this in together with the script typeface, We brought in a very, very little element that kind of pays tribute to some of the cattle industry with a brand of a rising sun. Paid so much attention. People talked so much about, hey, we actually have sun here. But then also kind of bringing in that ornamentation. Now I want to put this on hold for just a second. And I want to jump over to what has been going on community-wide with myellensburg.com. Once we create a color and a typeface foundation, it makes it very, very easy for us to start to connect the dots. Now, Amy has done a fantastic job getting people to incorporate the identity. You are starting to see this all over the place. Now, all we wanted to do was we wanted to give it a little bit of a design refresh so that it would reinforce the personality typeface of the system. And then also, you see what we did. We pulled that graphic element of that little scroll out, and we gave it that opportunity to put that web address right in there. Now, as simple as that might seem, it makes this unbelievably self-contained. So now all of a sudden, if we want other people to incorporate it in their message, we've actually made it easier for them.
It's like the Good Housekeeping seal in a way, where it can be placed on without feeling like it's interrupting the flow of another design.
Now, the other thing here is we made a very deliberate decision, even though in the primary identity, we're using this ornate script typeface. This is not about forcing everything to be exactly alike. We need legibility here. We chose that script typeface for my to break up the two words in the domain and also put the emphasis on my. But it still gives us that opportunity to kind of reinforce that website that we're sending everybody to. Now, the next thing that I wanted to do was what I call a 5-second redesign. And the website has recently got a new landing page. So what I wanted to look at was simply changing out some header graphics and some background colors. What could we do to make it exist in this system? And it's actually somewhat simple. Going through, changing some of those colors to be more in line with the overall palette. You can change out some of the stuff at the top. And now all of a sudden, it'll reinforce everything that we do. Now, with that historic Ellensburg, it creates a modifier that makes it very, very easy for us to change. So we can easily take that and create a secondary version just for downtown. Now, the nice thing is when you talk about historic, it can apply to everything. And you might find that you don't actually need to use the variation all that much. But we wanted to make sure that you had both. And here you kind of see how through doing in a one color and then also a reversed option and being able to test it out in all those different colors, it's something that can work in the different one color applications. Now, we also knew that we were kind of dealing with a couple different things, and we knew Chamber had recently gone through, created a new logo for themselves. We wanted to also give the EDA a new organizational identity. Now, they had the mindset and the wherewithal to create two different logos for their entity. They had an EDA logo that was their Downtown Association logo. Then they also had a downtown logo. Well, why do you need two? Because there's a difference between the place they're promoting and the organization itself. And heaven forbid, believe it or not, you might not believe me, but sometimes merchants get upset at organizations. So we wanted to create a separation there so that there was a difference between the destination identity and the organization. And we also wanted to create something that would allow the EDA to exist more in that same economic development realm as the chamber. So with that, we took 4 different colors, symbolizing the 4-point approach of the Main Street model that they use for their organization. And then we brought in some of the images of the downtown. Based off Carolyn's face, we're doing all right so far. You know, what's nice about this, it brings in that nice clean typeface of the identity system. It gives, you know, it allows you to exist both in the downtown realm and the economic development realm. And that's what organizations like EDA need. So now you've got a very ornate, you know, kind of personality appropriate identity for downtown, and then you've got your organizational identity. Now, again, same thing with their website. The framework itself of their website the organization and the way that content is shared is pretty solid. So how can we very quickly make it replicate the same look and feel? So simply change out the background graphic that they're using, change the logo in the header. The main logo in the header is the downtown. They got this one spot on as well. They have the downtown logo up top and then the organizational logo. And then as you get more and more into that, integrating in more of that color will really reinforce that. Now, that's kind of the primary organizations and kind of partners of this process, but we also like to go in and start to look at other organizations and activities and events. And the first one was the city. And again, I want to be very clear about this. The city has done an excellent job on implementation. And anytime you see identity that has made its way onto vehicles, into signage and all that kind of stuff, we can expect that kind of identity to be able to change and update as frequently as these organizations might need to adapt their message to best meet their target markets. So what we wanted to recommend was just a very simple kind of strategy. It's almost like an evolution strategy where they could keep the same graphic, they could adopt the unified word type, and it's simply an homage to say, hey, we're all kind of working together on that. This could be something that they could do, but to be honest with you, I think that everything that's being recommended can exist in perfect, unison with the stuff that already exists in the community. Now, the next thing that I want to show is both an initiative and hopefully a new event. But we want you all to start to enhance the awareness both locally and regionally of the amazing things that are made right here in Ellensburg. So what we want to do is we want to start Crafted by Ellensburg. And this would be a campaign that would be focused on highlighting everything from food products to art, crafts, just really speak to the craftsmanship of things done and made here. And this is, we have an event back home, and it's actually, they partnered with the website Etsy, and it's called the Indie Craft Fair. And all it does is it simply highlights these people that are creating things in the community. So being able to go and take that and share those things with the community. The thing that is amazing is, we talk about shop local campaigns all the time. And it's kind of interesting because as we went around, we saw some of the shop local stickers and it's like, keep your money local. But that's a hard message when you also have tourists walking through the door. And this is a little bit different slant on that because what it is it's heightening the awareness of that stuff that actually comes from here. But it's not saying, hey, this is not, this is for everybody. We are proud of the things that we make here, and we'd love to share them with you. So that's something that I think could be really, really strong here. I've been impressed over and over again with the things that we've come across. You got anything?
I'm done.
Okay. All right. The next, we had a couple different event logos and just kind of bounced around. Now, there might be some up here that I either didn't get my hands on the logo or didn't see what already existed. There are going to be some that already existed that I thought were great, and I'm simply showing through simple typeface changes we can bring them into a system. So it's all over the board, but one was Girls Night Out. And, Girls Night Out is a hard one. I was like, oh, man, I always feel bad when I have to design a Girls Night Out logo because I feel like I'm simplifying. It's like it's either a high heel shoe, a purse, or a wine glass. I don't know what that says about you women, but to kind of keep in that same spirit of some of the brand imagery, we found this really nice one of the boot and thought that would work well. And then, the Art of Wine event, the current logo for this year's has a cork on it. Again, wine events, there are a lot of folks doing wine events. Most of the time, it's either a glass, a bottle, or a cork, right? So I like to change things up a little bit and just kind of take a different spin on it. But just seeing how you can really have a lot of things that exist and with some different character, but they still reinforce the same system. Now, this next one was fantastic. The Brewfest logo. And did anybody in the room do the Brewfest logo? Is anybody responsible for that? All right. Well, they made this. It's the Winter Hop Brewfest, and the snowflake is made out of hops and wheat and barley. I mean, that's great. So all we did here, we changed the blue a little bit to be the same color blue as our palette. And then we changed some of the typefaces to reinforce this overall system. But overall, it's all the same. Now, same thing, we kind of jump out to this. Hometown Holidays, great logo. And all we did was change the typeface over. And there's no reason that you have to go and force everything to be different. Buskers in the Berg, that was one where it used to have a guitar behind it. This is a very ornate logo. It's got a lot of stuff going on to it. And honestly, I think this logo is going to constantly evolve because I think the way people relate to that event is going to constantly evolve. First Friday Art Walk, just different things that you can do. No.
Just asking.
Wow. Thanks. The other thing that is typical we see that over and over again in communities, and we'll talk about dachshunds on parade. No, the dachshund is not peeing, Trip. The dachshunds on parade have a really, really cool poster and a really, really cool logo. I don't know, I wasn't able to look at kind of year over year of how that organization markets itself, but a lot of times when we have a committee that's doing an event, they like to make their marketing look different each year. And that's not horrible, but being able to have some sort of continuity is very, very important. So being able to adopt an event logo that can be consistent year after year actually affords you the freedom to really explore some of the creative space when it comes to what the poster might look like or what the marketing that you do might look like while still keeping the continuity and keeping people kind of connected with that. And then from there, we wanted to go through and we wanted to show you some ways that you all can tell your story. And I've been doing this for over a decade. I always pick up tourism publications. Like, that's what I do. It's fun for me to look through that stuff. And sadly, I feel like most places, they spend more time figuring out whether they can spend money on something than they do what their message should be. I did not feel like that was the case here in Ellensburg. Feel like the stuff that you were purchasing, the message that you were bringing to the market was very, very good. But I wanted to give you a way that you could step up to the plate and be as confident as you deserve to be. And so with most of these ads, we are seeing single dominant image photos. I want the photography to blow you away. Virtually every photo that you'll see, I took yesterday. And I'm not even that good. So we'll start off with one. This first ad is targeted at the Seattle market. And it says, warning, this may look odd. It is, I think back to our time in Wenatchee, and, you would sit there and you could not go 5 minutes in Wenatchee without somebody saying, oh, we're Wenatchee, we're the home of 390 days of sunshine. It's like, that's their thing. Oh, you saw this. this has such a different confidence to it. And that's okay. Especially if you were at the public meeting after hearing what you all had to say about Seattle, this one will work just fine for you. But then just again, being able to share some of the sights and some of the feelings, some of the personality, the things. I mean, to me, this was so great. You know, it's like you've got a Jeep with a canoe on the top, stopping at this great. I mean. That's the kind of stuff that sparks something in people. They remember that place in their life, and you are still it. And that is extremely powerful. Showing off that architecture, showing off the different amenities that you have. And, you know, even you got this great stuff. I came down last night, and I know that Liberty is no longer a theater. I know it's a church, but it's all those things a part of who you are. The great little opportunities, Lunchbox Cafe. You know, you have one of the most attractive downtowns. Well, and I can't really say that. I'm going to say you have one of the most attractive communities that I've ever been to, and I've traveled all over the country. And the thing that's so funny is when you live here, you start to, you can hone in on what it is that irritates you. And someone that will remain nameless in the audience made a comment about the weeds and the lack of maintenance. Well, you know what? Could things be better cared for? Sure, they always could. But what I always try to tell people and remind them of is you have a true American classic. Just like with us, Tripp and I both had the same car growing up. We had a 1967 Mustang. Now, I bought my wife several years back a 2008 Toyota Camry. Now, in that year, people would tell her that she had a beautiful car. And they'd tell me I had a beautiful car. Now, in 2013, that 2008 Camry doesn't look so hot anymore. But mine's still a classic. Mine still rings true. Well, guess what? It is expensive to keep it running. And I have to take it to cruise-ins because I need other people to tell me how beautiful it is for me to keep doing all the things it takes to keep it on the road. That's exactly how a community works. You need that feedback. You need to be reminded how beautiful your community is. Your friends and neighbors need it more than you do. The fact that you're here in this room means that you're willing to put effort in and that you care about the place. We need your neighbors to be reminded of why the place they call home is so special. And that's one of the functions that these ads can really do. And, you know, I mean, just driving around and kind of capturing all the different flavors that are mixed up, whether it's, you know, a very, very kind of pastoral scene or whether it's art. You know, great spaces. It's like everywhere I went, whether we were in the Climber, whether we were in Gallery 1, heck, whether we were in the patio behind the TAF. It's like, this is great, and you guys get it. It's your home. This is probably, I mean, the Davidson block is one of the most impactful kind of architectural features. And what is so amazing to me is Davidson is to downtown what Barge is to CWU. And both of those buildings are absolutely stunning. Stunning structures. I had to go in the donut shop so I could make this photo. Yeah.
And I picked up a donut. He's like, I got to take a picture of it first before you.
But again, showing off the kinds of products that you can get. Now, I don't know if we didn't talk a whole lot about it, but one of the things that happens over and over again in communities, especially in communities where they might have seen a decline in the business population of their downtown, the locals in that community, they will just, you ask them and they'll say, oh, there's nothing downtown. We heard it from folks that work downtown. It's like, yeah, we're down there, and people come in all the time and say, how long have you been here? And it's like, we've only been open 17 years. And what happens is it leaves the consideration set. They don't even think about it. Don't even think about going downtown. And constantly reinforcing, reminding people, and getting them to rediscover what there is to find down there. We heard so many comments about the planters and how beautiful they were and how they really enhanced the character of the community. You can actually see this is the primary shot that was used to pull that color palette because it featured those corner block planters. Showing off some of the great stores and you know, those Callahan girls and relics and like, yeah. I ended up not putting the picture in. I didn't want it. I didn't want you on my bad side. But you know, being able to kind of build that sense of density. The other thing that's very, very important with consumers is the confidence to feel comfortable going somewhere without having an agenda. We talk a lot about wanting places to be destinations. And I think that that's a hard word because if you sit at home at all, I always get trapped into watching, you know, wedding shows on TLC. It's like that's the quality time you spend, right? So, you know, this word destination and destination weddings and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, well, I mean, we're not Bermuda, so are we a destination? But destination is a mindset. It's the confidence a consumer has in saying, we're just going to go to Ellensburg. We'll figure out what we do when we get there. It's them knowing that there's enough diversity and enough choice that they don't have to make their minds up before they get here. And when you achieve that status, you achieve tremendous comfort in the consumer's mind. Again, constantly showing off. All these are shots from inside the businesses and being able to kind of highlight the products that you can get. And going through and even seeing, you know, we got to see Ellensburg Blue today. And you know, the Ellensburg agate and bead, you walk in that store and it's like, oh my gosh, they've got so much stuff in there and so much going on. And those are, excuse the pun, those are the gems. Our businesses in our community are throwing events every day. And I don't think we remember that enough. So constantly celebrating the things that our businesses are doing. And then also celebrating those personalities. It was great. I went in today. I had to do some test marketing yesterday to make sure that it was appropriate for a photo. And then went in today and I was like, I need to take a shot. He was like, I've done this before. And you know, next thing you know, it's like he's laying everything out. Wine Spectator's exactly where it needs to be. It's like, hold on, let me go grab this rodeo bottle right in front. It's like, all right, I'm ready. I did not take this picture. She was not reading books to kids today. But again, you know, telling these stories and kind of connecting these dots is so, so very important. And just don't ever forget the assets that you have. And just how truly beautiful this place is. So with that, we're gonna open it up for you guys. That is what we were able to kind of pull together in the last 2 or 3 days. There is still a lot on my list. You are a very, very well-planned community. You have got tremendous organizations and tremendous events. We tried to be very mindful of the things that we did during this presentation. We tried our best to not step on any organizational toes. Tried to ask as many questions about permission as possible. But one of the things that I would like to say is if there's anybody out there that is involved in any of the organizations or groups, saw things that you like and would like for us to make some recommendations to the event or organization that you're involved in, we are more than happy. That is part of what we want to give this community, because the more people that are willing to be a part of the message, the stronger it will be, the more it will amplify, and the more it will begin to resonate. So with that, I'm going to open it up for you guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thoughts, questions?
It's really cool. I just think it's absolutely great. I just think everything you guys have done is just looks great. I look at that, and there's something about it that is like, it's familiar, but I don't.
Yeah.
Ice cream label or a beer label or something about from, I don't know what it is. It's
And the
familiar.
answer is yes. Yeah, it's like you're exactly.
But it's easy to look at. And when I first saw the typefaces, I didn't know they were going to work with the words.
Great.
That's, and you're hitting on a common issue, and that's why we always get nervous when we show it by itself, because you rarely ever see it in a vacuum, and so it's often within the context of some sort of placement, and so that's where he likes to try and test it to make sure, we want to show these examples of placement.
And the comment that I love to hear, and we hear it all the time, is when you first put that logo up on the screen, I was kind of like, I'm not so sure about that. By the time you got to the ads, I was sold. And if you can kind of experience that and feel that and you understand the strategy of being able to have a platform that we can easily tie into, there's huge benefit to that. But I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Will there be opportunities to share this sort of presentation, or just even a simple JPEG of the logo with friends, with other people in the community?
Absolutely. Let me hit on a couple different things. First of all, this nice little thing here is a microphone. We're recording this presentation with this slideshow. We'll be posting that on YouTube so that anybody that wants to get the meat of it can sit down and hear all the fantastic things that we have to say. And those of you that are watching this at home in YouTube, I see that you're in your underwear and you should not be doing that. The other thing, we'll be making the slideshow available, and but we are, to a certain degree, I think that it's good for the organizations that are kind of going to be the stewards of this on the front end to make sure that they manage. We don't want it to go too far out before they greenlight things. But when that happens, it is our recommendation that we want that destination identity to be a product that's made available to the community.
And typically how it works is, in the old days, it would be a style guide that would be printed, and then there would be a
CD-ROM
that you would get, or and floppy disk. But now everything's uploaded, and what we encourage the partners to do is to have a very simple way to let other people use it. And you already have experience doing that. So we're not, we're preaching to the choir, with Amy and Carolyn. They know how to work that system. But the more it's used, the more effective it is. And then there's rules of the road that are digitally provided that basically say don't turn it hot pink or whatever, the case may be. So.
Great question, though. Yeah, the end goal is it hits true magic when the business community sees the value in it and wants to incorporate it in their own message.
For example, I was in Waterbury, Vermont 2 weeks ago, and they have a local brewery that was doing an ad in Boston, and they put their logo very small at the bottom and put the Waterbury logo huge up top. And what they knew, they had the confidence to know that anyone, because they were advertising beer, they said they knew that anyone coming to Waterbury, Vermont was going to go to their brewery. So they didn't need their logo to be big. They needed Waterbury to be big because they wanted to get them to that beer destination. So.
Something I really like about what you guys have done is, first of all, you've created an identity. What I also appreciate is, as we rally around building into where we're going. That's where we've been, although we're taking where we've been.
I'm very, very glad that you feel that about it. You know, one of
Which
the
makes me
things.
feel even worse about leaving the feel slide out.
The thing that is so very important about any system that a community adopts is, and it's funny, I speak about community branding all over the country, and one of the things I always make fun of is I personally am trying to abolish any variation of the phrase preserving the past, embracing the future. Because that is like the tagline of every single community, because they know the first moment of introspection, they realize that they want to be a place that honors where they are from, but are not stuck in it, and has the vision and wherewithal to create and craft a vision for itself. And that is exactly what we want any identity system to do, is give you the ability to say, we know our origin, but also give you the freedom. It's not up to a brand to decide what Ellensburg should be in 10 years, but it needs to have the flexibility for you to chart your course. And if you choose to enhance this element or a little bit of all, it still is relevant and allows for that growth. So thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Question. What is your expected lifespan of
That's a great question.
typefaces, colors, messages, and I have two questions, so that's A. B, what is your company's potential role in where it goes
Okay.
in the long term?
Fantastic questions. First of all, the answer to question one is between 3 days. No, I'm kidding. Typically, for a marketing logo, we're seeing a maybe 8 to 12 year span for some of the elements, graphic elements, and a little shorter span for some of the message type elements. So we might see campaigns rotating out on a 5-6 year basis, and we might see the graphics lasting longer. I mean, we've got some communities that we were doing back in 2002 that are still using exactly what they had. We have some that we did in 2002 that just got approval from council last year to use it. So they're just getting started. But, you know, the big thing is, and this is where I want to be real mindful, when you talk about a marketing message, your advertising, the things that go out in publications, banners and all that kind of stuff, those type things are going to have much shorter lifespans than more hard stuff like street signs. And I mean, you guys have got fantastic benches and trash cans and all that kind of stuff. But like when people talk about doing streetscape projects, I tell them, you might not necessarily want to take your destination logo and have that put in that bench, because what happens if the market changes? What happens if your economy changes and you decide you need to start to walk in a little different direction? So I will say, though, I think with what we've built and the expansion that it has, there is really no good reason that this can't last a good decade for you, at least. And at the end of that time, you know, it might need a refresh or it might be a redesign. But the best example out there is to look at the difference between Coke and Pepsi. You know, and Coke essentially has had the exact same thing since they started, and Pepsi seems like they redesign themselves every 6 years. So I think because of the long-lasting character of this community, you should be able to get a good long lifespan out of it. The second question was what our role is, could be. We have a very, very interesting approach to this, because our goal is to create a foundation that will allow you to then take this system and rely on your own local talent.
And you have a lot of local talent already here. You have folks in the room that designed some of the existing graphics that we were paying honor to them, and we know that they have the skills to sort of take it to the next level. So we really like to take a step back. It's not that we disappear, because we get, I mean, inevitably
I get emails every week from folks asking for something, and that's fine too. You know, I mean, we had a community that we worked with back in in December, and great community. They have done phenomenal things in 8 months, and they ended up they were the home of this year's American Idol winner. So, you know, they had American Idol crew go and they did a concert there, and she was like so pumped. She was like, I got your logo on national TV. Like, but, you know, we got an email 2 weeks ago from her saying, hey, I saw another one of your community's pocket folder. That thing was pretty slamming. What's it going to take for me to get a pocket folder? And it's like, all right, we'll do, you know, and that's the thing. We like to help out when that kind of thing is needed, but really the intent, the true ability for a community to be self-sufficient and take it and run with it is being able to use the talent here at hand. So that is our intent. We're not a full service agency. We're not sitting there trying to find a long-term service contract. So
it's not what we're after. We want to rely on the local folks here who know what they're doing. So.
Oh yeah, you've been trying a couple times.
See if my relatives came in from Nebraska. How would they see this in Ellensburg?
It's a great question. Well, first of all, the tourism, I mean, Amy has been doing an amazing job already with marketing. I can't speak too much detail for all the different publications that it might go in and all that kind of thing, but there's a full campaign that goes both in print and on web. But then in addition to that, everything from street banners, everything from a lot of the stuff kind of exists inside the businesses, inside the community itself. We had one community that actually took the brand statement that Tripp wrote and put it on one of our ad compositions and started to frame that and give it to the leaders of the community. And now, next thing you know, it's like you go in the bank president's office and there's the brand statement framed on the wall. And so there are a lot of really interesting ways that it can make.
Community that took the ads and turned them into big posters that they would put in the stores. And so there's some creative ways to use this. And we're somewhat limited in how we communicate because we've got to communicate through a slide presentation. But the script's designed to be adapted to radio. You know, there's certainly digital and Facebook and all those other pieces that we'll be working with the organizations on as well. So your Nebraska friend would see it eventually in the environmental graphics, but they would have already encountered it before they got here because there's a good chance they would have looked it up on the web, they would have seen it, they'd arrive here, they'd see a gateway sign that might have it on it, and then they'd proceed to a business and they might pick up one of the things I really want you guys to do is like a secret guide to all cool things Ellensburg, you know.
Like an underground type.
Right.
Because, one of the challenges is, to get the people in front.
Right.
And so, and everything's fabulous, but it's like, how do you take that next step of?
Well, and the other thing to remember, and I think it's funny. I mean, we've dealt with that issue all over. We had one community that I always like to pick on them is Conway, South Carolina. Conway's about 12 miles west of Myrtle Beach. Okay, so, Myrtle Beach has millions and millions of visitors every year. And as we were going through this process, the merchants in downtown Conway kept talking about how it seemed like they had a lot of Canadians that came through the shops. So, as typical, those meetings will go, next thing you know, there is this rallying call to do a targeted marketing campaign to Canada. I had to remind them that Canada is an entire country. And when you are a community that has millions of people 12 miles to the east of you, let them do the heavy lifting and you figure out ways that you can make them do the short drive. That being said, I understand the frustration that comes from having all of these big numbers that are coming off, only stopping at the gas station, then get back on and going. We have to know that there's there's a percentage of that we will never get, and that's okay. But there is a percentage, and if we could capture even a small percentage of the travelers, it could make a big impact on the community. You know,
A small
There-
percentage in addition to what they're already.
right, in addition to what they're already capturing. There are a lot of ways to do it. I will tell you this, I'm not going to share the ways with everybody, but we've had some very creative conversations about how you can market in bathrooms. So
I tell you, it's gonna work.
yeah. So, but you know, any kind of guerrilla type tactics like that, and to speak to your family too. I mean, marketing them would be a lot easier for us too when Nebraska gets internet. And
Just kidding.
yeah.
Question, do all your presentations include your mellifluous? Is that always part of your presentation?
No.
I went to several of your previous clients and stuff, and they seem to all adopt it.
The-
When you do it, do they always adopt it? Is it kind of ubiquitous for your?
No, but I think that the thing about that brand statement, and I mean, it is definitely a strong factor in our system. It is part of the four main tools that we feel like every community needs. Just because they need it doesn't mean that they necessarily need to use it in their marketing. So the way in which a community takes that and what it does in that community does vary from different places.
I'm actually working on one where the brand statement was not separable as much as it needed to be. So we're retooling the statement a little bit so they don't have to do the whole narrative. They can get snippets out a little bit better. We deliberately did yours so the pieces could come out and operate independent of one another so you don't have to read the whole thing.
Honestly, sometimes some of the functions that the brand statement performs in a community is simply giving the people, the stewards of the message, the freedom and permission to move forward. Well, and that was one, they took it and, the video, adding video to it and that kind of stuff really makes them start to sing. There was one. Yeah.
First, good work. And
Thank you.
second, this is big. This is kind of a follow-up to Alex's question. Obviously, it's going to take a certain number of organizations and entities. On your experiences in 300 other communities, how do we go about doing that?
Well, I think one of the things that I have found, and I'll make a complex question simple. I mean, when the people are reminded of what they love, if you can give your citizens that brief moment of pride, it is amazing what that'll do. Now, that being said, I don't want to sound like the complete expert either. I feel like seeing what you all have been able to do in a very short time with the adoption rate of myellensburg.com shows me that you understand a lot of those techniques already. My hope is that what this will allow you all to do is say, we understand that we need to make sure that our system is exactly what it needs to be. We listened to the community, we brought them out, and we crafted a message that we think takes Ellensburg to a different level, and then make that toolkit available to them. We have a lot of communities that'll take the presentation, they'll go and they'll do it to boards, they'll do it to steering committees.
We've had other communities do really good launch events. Ben worked in one community where it was wild. They had a concert and then they unfurled banners. Mm-hmm. And then that night, the city crew had ordered all the banners, and that night they installed all the banners through the community. And they threw hundreds of t-shirts out into the audience. And so it was this massive reveal at this event. We had another community.
And that one, I will say, that one was interesting. It was Sanford, North Carolina, and the entire project was funded by the private sector. There were some members of the business community that were involved in an economic development organization, and they just felt like it was something that was needed. And it actually, get this will blow your mind because it still blows my mind. It was a 3-part event. So the first event was an exclusive wine reception that people paid $75 a ticket to go into just to
Get a
hear me
preview.
read the brand statement. And then we moved to 350 people in the theater who were the true movers and shakers of the community, who then all paraded together out into the park across the street where 2,500 people were there for a free concert, and took an intermission of the concert and introduced the new identity. And you know, so things like that. We've had other communities where the city was leading the effort, and they changed all the graphics on their trucks and introduced them at the Christmas parade. You know, really, really weird stuff. But then we'll have other communities where, understanding the dynamics in their place,
It's more of
they
a
know
triple.
it's a rolling start. It's like you start to get it out, and then once you, as the organizers, achieve what you think is a saturation point, then you tell everybody to take notice. So then all of a sudden, it's kind of like when you hear a word for the first time, and then you're like, I just learned that word. I can't believe everybody else learned it too. Well, they were using it all along. We just ignored it. And so it's kind of like that. So, and we are always more than happy. That's one of the biggest questions that we have from communities ongoing. It's like, hey, you know, can we get some ideas on launch? Can we get some ideas on this or that, implementation, rollout, buy-in, and all that kind of stuff? And I will tell you, you know, there are different benchmarks. Stanton, Virginia, we did Stanton, Virginia in 2005, one of my favorite communities. And I always have a rule where even if we're working for a city, we do not mess with fire departments and police departments. If you carry a gun or an axe, I'm not going to mess with you. And they sent me a photo a couple months ago of the fire truck with the logo on it. It's like, once it makes it there, you're golden. You know, once those guys allow it into their identity, then you're in a good place. Yep. Probably, depending on how long it'll process, it'll either be up tonight or tomorrow. And as soon as it's up, we'll send the link.
Judging by recent.
Do what?
Are you going to add the missing slide in?
We can't.
Oh.
Yeah, we can't. That's what stinks about the way the audio works.
You'll hear the audio. You'll hear all my mess up and all that.
Yeah, we will for the presentation itself, but we won't be able to for the movie. But yeah, so it should be in the next day, depending on.
It will not be tonight, judging by recent experience. I will just tell you that. I'm just saying, we keep getting hiccups on upload time.
Oh, do you?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else? I know y'all probably want to get to dinner.
Well, tell us, how did you guys get into this?
How did we get into it? Well, he got me into it, and he's been in the urban planning and downtown planning world for a real long time. And one of the things that, and I will, he says nice things about me every now and then, so I'll say something nice about him. He started to realize that he would go into these communities, and one of the first things that they wanted to do was look at what plans had been done. And he started to get frustrated by going into these communities and seeing public dollars invested on really good plans that have then gone unimplemented. So he started asking the question, why? Why do good ideas get left untouched? And one of the things that he came to realize was, if you do not have a vision that resonates with the citizens, that vision cannot last through the change in leadership in any elected government. So he began to integrate in marketing strategies with downtown redevelopment plans. And the first agency that he was using, the moment that a community wanted to use what they had designed for them, they wanted an extra 25 grand. He was like, this is ridiculous. So the next thing, like the next day, I get laid off from my job as a corporate branding manager, and we team up. And that was early 2002 was when he brought me into the world.
And we've only gotten in several fist fights over the years.
Yeah. People seem to like.
How often you slug it.
Do what? Yeah.
I was gonna ask how often you
Yeah, it is funny. I think people like the family dynamic because they can tell when we are not happy with each other.
Sarah's had to come intervene several times.
But the thing that's nice about that, I think it actually helps our creative process because we don't care about each other's feelings. We care about getting it right. So
we started arguing today, and I was like, well, the reason why we're arguing is we're so close to getting this over this hump. We're stuck somewhere, and it was like, and we got to. It's like we're arguing because we're close.
Yeah.
So let's not get mad. Let's just work it through.
Yeah.
Well, we do want to let you go. If you have any other questions, please come up and ask us. I just want to thank you. It's been wonderful being here. Thoroughly enjoying it.